Let's talk about one of the world's truly great epics, the Ramayana. For millions, it's a familiar tale. You've got a heroic prince, a kidnapped wife, and this huge battle between good and evil. But what if I told you that in some versions, the wife is never even kidnapped, or that in others, the hero isn't the one who wins the final fight? Yeah, we're about to see how one single epic splintered into countless, and sometimes completely contradictory, stories.
So the version most of us probably know is pretty straightforward, and it's powerful. You have the heroic prince, Rama, his devoted wife, Sita, and his loyal brother, Lakshmana. Rama gets exiled, Sita gets snatched by the 10-headed demon king Ravana, and this epic war kicks off to get her back. It's really the classic story of good conquering evil.
But here's the thing, that's just one version. For every person who knows that story, there's someone else who knows a version where the plot is totally different. So let's dig in and figure out how this one epic became so many different things to so many different people. To really get how this story could change so much, we have to go back to the beginning. The real beginning. Our journey starts with the oldest version we have, an epic poem written by a sage named Valmiki, probably around 300 BCE. This is our ground zero.
And what's so fascinating is that Valmiki's original text wasn't written as scripture. It was seen as a great work of literature, kind of like Homer's Odyssey. It was this masterpiece of poetry and philosophy. In this version, Rama isn't a god you're supposed to worship. He's a complex, mortal hero.
In Valmiki's poem, Rama is called Maryada Purushottam, basically the ideal man. He's the embodiment of Dharma, or righteousness. But here's the key. His perfection wasn't about being flawless. It was about him, as a human, having to grapple with these huge moral choices. He was a character to be studied, a kind of mirror for our own lives. That's our starting point.
Okay, so from this literary foundation, the story starts to travel. And like any great story that gets passed around, it begins to transform. As it crosses cultures, religions, and borders, people adapt it, reinterpret it, and it takes on all these new shapes and new meanings.
So take the Buddhist telling, the Dashatha Jataka. Here, Rama isn't exiled because a queen is jealous. He's sent away to the Himalayas to keep him safe. But the really wild part is this. Sita is never abducted. The whole central conflict that drives Valmiki's epic, the war to get Sita back, it's just not there. It totally reflects Buddhist ideas about avoiding conflict.
Then there's the Jain version, which brings another incredible twist, all based on the principle of nonviolence. Since the perfect hero can't kill, Rama doesn't. He stays peaceful. Instead, it's his brother Lakshmana who kills the demon king Ravana. Rama himself eventually gives up his kingdom, becomes a monk, and achieves spiritual liberation, a completely different ending for our hero. And as the epic spread across Southeast Asia, the spotlight started to shift to other characters. In Thailand's version, the Ramakien, a lot of the focus is on the awesome monkey god Hanuman. Over in Malaysia, Rama's brother Lakshmana gets a much bigger role. This kind of flexibility was actually the key to the story's survival. It let different cultures highlight the characters and values that really spoke to them. Now, the changes weren't just about which hero got the spotlight. They were also about whose eyes we see the story through. And this quote really gets to the heart of another huge transformation, the feminist retellings of the Ramayana.
These versions, people often call them Sita tales. They totally flip the script. They put Sita, not Rama, right at the center of the story. The whole thing is about her journey, her suffering, and her strength. And this isn't just some modern thing either. These stories have roots in much older traditions, like a fiery 16th century retelling by a poet named Chandrabhati, who told the entire epic from a woman's point of view.
So we've seen the story change for more than 2,000 years through word of mouth and written texts. But then, in the late 20th century, a new technology comes along and gives one specific version of the story an incredible, unprecedented amount of power: television.
In the late 1980s, India's national TV channel aired a series based on the Ramayana, and the impact, it was just monumental. We're talking an estimated 80 million people tuning in every single Sunday morning. Across the entire country, streets would literally empty out. It became the most watched show in the nation's history.
And this wasn't just entertainment. A recent study actually measured the show's long-term effects. They compared areas that got a good TV signal to those that didn't, and the results were just staggering. In places that watched the show, parents were more likely to give their kids traditional Hindu names, and more people became vegetarian. But the study also found a darker side. There was a rise in Hindu-Muslim communal violence, and more votes for the Hindu nationalist BJP party. One televised version of one story had this profound, lasting social and political impact.
So you can really trace his evolution of Rama himself over time. He starts out in Valmiki's epic as this complex, mythological hero. Centuries later, in very popular retellings, he's transformed into a divine god who is worshipped. And then, in the modern political era, for many people, he becomes a literal historical figure whose life is presented as actual, verifiable fact.
So, why does all this matter? Why does this journey, from an ancient poem to a religious text to a political force, why does it have so much power today?
Well, at the end of the day, the story of the Ramayana is really a story about us. It's about how we use stories to make sense of our world. I think this quote just nails it. The real power of the epic isn't about proving its historical accuracy. It's about its incredible ability to shape cultures, to inspire people, and to reflect our own hopes and fears right back at us.
From ancient poems to our social media feeds, the stories we tell literally define our reality. The journey of the Ramayana shows us how one single story can be retold and reshaped to mean radically different things, and it leaves us with a really important question. What are the powerful stories being retold and reshaped all around you right now?